So today I was supposed to do all kinds of stuff with the lawn, getting ready for spring, planting stuff, seeding, but as you can see, it is miserable outside. So I'm going to take that opportunity to finish off the Manta Mini ITX build that I started last week. Hey everybody, Brian here with BPS Customs, and today what I want to do is finally put the finishing touches on this. This is my NZXT Manta Mini ITX water-cooled system. Now, I have been enormously happy with the cooling performance of the system, but aesthetically there are a couple things that I did want to change, and I have mentioned them in previous videos. The first thing is that I wasn't entirely happy with the bends in the system. Not that the bends came out bad themselves, but the placement of the bends in combination with the orientation of some of the fittings has caused a portion of the loop to not be perfectly parallel, and that bugs me. But I'm going to take this opportunity to redo the loop and introduce these beautiful Bits Power 12mm outer diameter hard tube fittings. It's going to add a little bit of flair to the inside of the case. The fittings are going to be white, and I'm actually going to use them in lieu of making some of the bends. So we're going to do straight tubes with some 90s in there, just with fittings. The second thing is that we're going to swap out some of the color mismatched cables in here for these. These are Cobra cables, cable extensions. I believe they're UV reactive, but that actually doesn't matter for our purposes. What actually matters is that the color is much closer to the color of our coolant than the cables we have in here right now, which are more of a forest green. I know the color difference doesn't look that big on camera, but you can notice it in person, and it bugs me, especially because this is a system that I'm eventually going to be selling. I want to make sure that aesthetically it's as good as it can get. The third thing, which you could actually see here, is that I have painted the white rings of the Corsair SP120s to match the system overall aesthetic. The paint I got, it was just from Home Depot. It's like a neon green. Put a couple coats on the white ring of the Corsair SP120s, and comes out looking really good. All right, well, let's get to it. So no time lapse this time. The last video ended up being 26 minutes, and I'm not sure if anybody wants to watch something like that again. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to intermittently stop my progress and video where I'm at in the build, just so you guys can see how I do things, and maybe glean some information that might help you in the future. So the first thing we have to do is drain the system. Now, one of the first things you learn when you start making custom loops is that you need to leave yourself a space where you can drain and fill your loop. And that's what I've done here. The base of the pump has two ports. It has an in and an out. The out port obviously has to be used because that's where the pressure is generated for your loop. But the in port doesn't necessarily have to be used if you have another way to reintroduce coolant back into your reservoir. In this system, I've used an EK reservoir top that has other ports for your in. So right now, the in at the base of the pump is actually not in use, and it's covered by a plug. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to screw on a compression fitting, snake a piece of tubing in there, put it on the compression fitting, and use that as a drain. I'll be able to manipulate the case, move it around, tilt it, and stuff like that to make sure that the coolant is sufficiently drained out of the system before going ahead with any other changes. All right, so right here you can see the quick little 90-degree fitting I put on along with the compression fitting right here. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to take this tubing here, I'm going to put it into the fitting or onto the fitting, and then drain the coolant out of the loop. Okay, so now we have the system, what I would say is approximately 95% drained. I know we have some coolant still hanging out in that upper radiator, but I'm not entirely worried about that because I'm going to do the work to the system while it is sitting like this. So nothing should leak out. And one thing I want to point out is when you are draining your system, make sure that you are introducing air into the system as well. Otherwise, you're going to create a vacuum effect and you're not going to get any kind of drainage. What I had to do was loosen one of these top plugs right here on the reservoir top in order to introduce some air and allow the fluid to drain out through the tubing that I had installed at the bottom. All right, so I've got the fittings and tubing all stripped out of here. And before I go starting to redo the loop, what I'm going to do is get these cables out and redo the cables, because once the loop is in, access to the cables is going to be severely limited. Like I mentioned before, you could actually see down in here, there is some residual coolant in the system, and that came out of the radiator when I was moving the system around. It's just going to stay in the reservoir right now. I'm not planning on moving this, and so it's not going to drain out or anything like that. When you're draining a loop and you're redoing the system, leaving a little bit of coolant in is not optimal, but as long as it's in a place where it's not going to leak out, it should be fine. Here's the color difference for these cables. It's pretty striking, actually. Hopefully the one on the left is going to go a lot better with our system. All right, cables are in. The 24 pin actually gave me a little bit of problem because I did decide to reinstall the cable combs, and this little cover right here was actually getting in the way of exactly where I wanted the comb to go. But it came out, I had to put it in like diagonally. But looks good. The EPS cable, always kind of a pain in the butt, just because of where it is on the motherboard. But I don't know if you could tell in the video, but the colors here, and then the coolant are going to be really good. All right, well, we've hit the point where the loop is constructed. You could see the bits power fittings being used as 90s here, and then there's actually one down there. But what I've done is I've actually moved the fill port from over here to right here, because I'm actually going to fill the loop with the case sideways. If you've ever built a system with a reservoir that sits horizontally instead of vertically, you know that you often end up with a problem with an air bubble in the reservoir when you're done filling it if you fill the case when it's standing straight up. I'm going to try to alleviate this problem by filling it with the case on its side. Hopefully that's going to prevent the air bubble from forming here, because we'll be filling it from the top here, and it'll be filling in that airspace as it goes. All right, so I think we're finally done. It was kind of a long process. Took almost a week, but this was not a one continuous build for me. I do have a regular job, so I was just kind of doing this when I could. But I think the end result is pretty spectacular, to be honest with you. These bits power fittings really make the green of the green coolant, the green wires, and the green fan rings pop. The contrast that they provide really draws your eyes to the water cooling system. And considering that this is, it's a main feature of this computer, it's really what you want. I wanted to just go over a few things. Wanted to show off how all the water cooling components look in here. So here you go. It's pretty slick, I think. And I don't think that I'm going to need to do anything else to this computer. And like I said in my initial video on the system, this is going to be for sale. I'll probably list it on Craigslist or something like that. I'm in no rush to sell it, but it is a pretty decently performing system. And if anybody out there is interested, let me know. But until then, you could check out a couple of my other videos. Here? Yep, up here. I'm really bad at this. But I'm doing a giveaway where you could win a Pentium G4400 or an NZXT Hue Plus. So check out that video, and I also have a couple other things up there that you might be interested in. So click on those cards. So thanks everybody for watching. Really appreciate it. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the dislike button. Just hit a button.